everybody, this is Dr. Maples, and today we're here to talk about the dreaded W grade. I get emails from students every semester saying, Dr. Maples, I got a W in this particular class. Have I indeed ruined my life? Well, what I want to do today is to deal with that very question. I want to demystify the W grade. I want to talk about specific cases where you'd get it and list some instances where you'd probably prefer to get a W grade. And I really want to think about those long-term impacts of a W grade. How are they going to impact your college life? Turns out there's actually a particular situation where a W grade could really cause you some problems. So make sure and stick around to the end of the video to find out about that. Now, before we get started, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to this channel. It makes me feel like I'm doing my job. When I wake up in the morning, I see I got a couple extra subscribers on the channel. Second, I'd love to hear your comments below with your experiences from withdrawing from classes and getting the dreaded W grade. Likewise, if there's a video idea that you'd like me to cover, leave it in the comments below. Third, I would sure appreciate if you'd share this channel with some of your colleagues and friends. Let them know what we're working on here, because my whole purpose in doing this channel is to help students just like you have a little easier time in college than I did when I went many, many years ago. So if you'd share this with your friends, I sure would appreciate it. All right, we got a lot to do today, and we got a lot of W grades to talk about. So let's get started. Now, first things first, what is the W grade? Well, it means that you withdrew from a class, but you did so after a very specific point in time at your university. Now, I want to be very clear, a W in this case has nothing to do with withdrawing from the university as a whole. When you're withdrawing from the university for any reason, it's a very different process. We're talking about withdrawing from a single class. By the way, if you'd like me to do a video on withdrawing from a university, leave some comments below and I'll look into that. Now, when we're withdrawing from a class, you generally can do that as much as you like that first week of classes. Now, every university or college is a little bit different, so check with your advisor or look at the registrar's schedule and it'll tell you when the drop deadline for withdrawing from a class would be. After that deadline, which is usually the first weekend after your first week of classes, after that passes, if you withdraw from a class, you will get what's called a W grade, and it appears on your transcript. Now, that means that if you pull your transcript, which by the way is your record of all the classes you've attempted, all the classes you've completed, your grades, it's got information about your high school, about your ACT, SAT scores, all sorts of other things. But it'll have that class that you've withdrawn from and a W beside it as the grade. And this is where the W grade comes from. Now, when you might get a W grade really falls in that whole schedule that your university is going to use. And it really does vary from university to university. Generally, with my university, you got about a week to withdraw from a class, otherwise you get the W. Generally, you've got that first week of classes, and then Sunday night, there's sort of a cutoff in there that if you go in the system and drop from the class after that, you'll get the withdrawal on your transcript. Now, the good thing is you can often withdraw from classes without a fee for several weeks. And again, this varies by your university, so look at your registrar's schedule and it'll tell you exactly when those deadlines are. As you get later in the semester, you're going to start to see a fee to withdraw from a class. And that's where it's going to be a thing for you, because now you got to pay to withdraw from the class. And then there's going to be a particular deadline, and this varies truly by university to university, that you're going to withdraw and you're going to get what's called an FW. Now, the FW means that you basically got an F in the class and you're withdrawing. It's defined differently at different campuses. Some don't use that at all. They use simply an F. Others, you can withdraw from classes until very late in the semester. So this is one of those weird situations where you always want to know what kind of withdrawal you're looking at. But you can withdraw from classes, and sometimes it's actually a good thing. There might be particular situations where you'd want to withdraw from a class. Now, before you do anything withdrawing from a class-wise, get in touch with the instructor. I know that sounds crazy, but they want to hear from you. Ask them flat out, say, this is where I am in this class. Remember that we often can't talk about grades over emails because that's a policy issue with FERPA, but ask them how you're doing in the class and if there's any chance that you can still pass this class or if they think you should withdraw. What I have found is instructors will give you good advice. If they don't see a pathway for you to pass this class, they're probably going to say, yeah, I think you should withdraw this and take it in the future. And this is where you can withdraw from the class this semester, focus on the rest of your classes, and then just take this class again in the future. Now, I will say, and this is some inside information, and my faculty colleagues might not appreciate me telling you this, so don't tell anybody, But there are universities that actually track the number of withdraws, Ds, and Fs in classes. It's called a DFW rate. And faculty are sometimes being told we need to move those DFW rates down. So if you contact a faculty member and say, hey, I'm thinking about withdrawing from this class, that might be a situation where they'd say, well, I don't want to increase my DFW rate, so let's make a plan for what we can do to work together to get you to the other side of this class and get you to the graduation stage. It even gives them a reason to maybe try and get you out of that D and F category as well, which is really what you want. Now, it's always good to just find out if there's any statistical chance that you can pass a class. If you're at the midterm and there's no way that you can pass, withdrawing is a very logical decision. Likewise, there may be times where your heart just ain't in it, and that's okay too. If you're in a class that you absolutely hate, maybe you signed up for a major that you realize you are not in love with, or maybe the instructor's just wrong, withdrawing from a class can be a very logical decision. I'll be honest, I've withdrawn from a class when I was an undergrad because I met the instructor and I said, we are not going to get along. It's probably best for me to withdraw and take this with somebody else. That's what I did, and it worked out for the better. Now, a great thing to do before you officially withdraw from any class, if you have time, is to check in with your faculty advisor or your major advisor, or even a colleague or a professor or someone at the university that you really trust. Chat with them about the situation. Tell them what's going on. Again, they may have some options. They may have some things they would suggest. Same thing, they might even be able to reach out to the professor and say, hey, this is one of my students. They're having trouble. Could we get the two of you together so that you could work something out and see if they can pass this class? I've done that before to help out students of mine. So before you withdraw from a class, communicate with people. Check in with the professor, check in with your advisor, and do a self-check too. Is it possible for you to pass the class? And is your heart even in it? Because if your heart's not in it, then maybe this isn't the right semester to take that class. Now, there are situations where you should not withdraw from the class. And I want to say you should not withdraw from a class until you talk to somebody. Talk to the instructor particularly, because I'm going to be here to tell you their idea of failing a class is almost always going to be different from your idea of failing a class. I routinely have seen students drop out of classes without asking me if they should, that were on track to pass the class with a C. So it would have made far more sense to them to have stayed in the class, passed it, and be done with it. But instead they withdrew late in the semester, or in some cases withdrew and got an F. So this is the thing, always chat with the instructor and let them know. If you see a statistical pathway to you passing the class as well, you should stay in it. If you think you can get a C and your heart's in it and you're ready, work with it, get that C, be done with the class. There's nothing wrong with a C. C for see you later, as I always like to tell my students. Now, finally, if you talk to the instructor and they reach out to you and say, hey, I'll make arrangements with you. We can do this, this, and this to make sure you get these assignments in. I can hook you up with a tutor. I can do whatever we need to do to help you get to the other side of the class. First things first, you've got a great professor, so give them a great rating on ratemyprofessors.com. But second, meet those terms, complete that class. A W is not going to help you here because you found a professor that's willing to work with you. And let me tell you, if you got a professor that's willing to work with you, you can pass that class. All you got to do is follow through on your commitments, keep your word, and get through that class, and you're good to go. Now, I gotta say, W sometimes stands for wisdom instead of withdraw. There are some very wise scenarios for withdrawing from a class. If you're doomed and you're going to fail this class statistically, or if your heart is not in it and you're gonna fail it, and you can still withdraw and get the W, it's a great idea. Because that W is something that's not gonna really cause you problems. It's not gonna change your GPA. It's not going to impact you in the future. I have never seen an employer say, well, this person's got a W on their transcript, so I don't know if, it just doesn't happen. Similarly, with graduate schools, I've never heard of a case where that was a breaking issue for them to deny someone getting into grad school. And here's the thing, I have W's on my undergraduate transcript, and I got in just fine, got my PhD and everything. So, W's don't really hold you back there. But here's this weird case. Are you a scholarship student? You might have an issue with a W. Now, a W counts as an attempt on a class. And some scholarships, not all, some scholarships are written in terms of they will give you so many total attempts at classes to fulfill your degree. Now remember, generally universities require 120 hours to fulfill a bachelor's degree. So your scholarship may literally say you have 120 attempted hours to complete this degree. a W will count towards those attempts. And so you don't want to rack up a lot of these because you may get to your final semester and your scholarship provider says, hey, here's the rest of your money. By the way, you're going to owe this much amount to your university for the rest of your tuition because you've used up all your attempt hours. This is the main situation where a W is going to impact you. If you're not a scholarship student, or if your scholarship isn't concerned about attempt hours, then a W can be a very wise decision. Particularly if you know you're going to fail it and you can withdraw from the class, it's just a logical decision because you can withdraw and you can attempt it another semester. Moreover, if you're having problems in one class, there's a chance you might be having problems in other classes. So withdrawing from this one might help you focus more on the other ones. Now, I do have to say, avoid the FW. Don't wait until like the last half of the semester or even the last couple of weeks to look at doing a withdrawal. A withdrawal is something that's better done before the midterm, or if your university allows it, shortly thereafter, where you determine there's no pathway forward. Avoid that FW because that doesn't do anybody good. And to be honest, I've advised students that were looking at an FW to just go ahead and write out the class, turn in as much work as you can, even if it's bad, and pray and hope for a D or even a C. I've seen cases where that's worked out just fine for students. They got a passing grade and they were still done with a class that was a gen ed thing that they never wanted to take again. Now, if it's something in your major, you probably want to aim for at least a C, and that's where a retake might be a thing. But here's the other thing. If you get an F in a class, most universities will actually let you retake the class. You may have to petition the dean to do it. You may have to do some paperwork. You might just be able to sign up for it again. But taking it again will often let you get rid of that F off your transcript. You can put in a letter grade. That's what you want. So that's the W grade. It's actually not so dreaded after all. It is something that if you're a scholarship student can cause you some issues, so be aware of that. But otherwise, the W is there to help you. Remember, W can stand for withdrawal, but sometimes it also often stands for wisdom because it gives you a situation to withdraw from a class that you're going to get an F in. And if we can avoid getting an F, that's what we want to do. That's all I've got for you on the W grades. As I've said, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. Likewise, if there's some issues in your college life you'd like me to talk about, leave me some comments below. I enjoy hearing those ideas from you. I'd be happy to do a video on them. All right, that's all I got for today. We'll talk soon. I'll see you later.